Well, welcome everybody to the National Lunch and Learn League with Annie Mac Works. My name is Russ Fitzpatrick, and I'm the host for today's Lunch and Learn event. And you guys are in for a treat. As you could tell by the screen, there's a lot of moving parts to Annie Mac Works. But what I will tell you about Annie Mac Works is that culture matters. We have created a mortgage bank that has a realtor-centric culture. Annie Mac Home Mortgage's focus is working with our realtors arm in arm to build production, build more professionalism and more income. And when you look at the word culture matters, it means a lot to me because I know that realtor-centric culture at Annie Mac Home Mortgage is a big reason why you're here today as realtors and as real estate professionals working more closely with Annie Mac Home Mortgage. Today's Lunch and Learn is hosted by a gentleman that you're going to find fascinating, if not a little bit intellectual and or even ethereal at times. But I can promise you, after getting to know his organization and all of the sales companies that he's helped across the country, you're in for a real treat from the gentleman that runs a high level coaching company that worked with companies on establishing or reestablishing their core values, building their training platforms, and working with their sales leaders and their executive teams to build a meaningful sales culture and a customer relationship culture that matters. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you one of the most fascinating minds in sales, teaching, training, and coaching in all industries, but especially his work in the real estate and mortgage industry has become very, very popular. This gentleman's name is Jay Doran, and I hope you enjoy your time with him.
So creating cultural alignment is about the individual, the influencer, the leader getting out of the way of the idea that they need to build. Before we build that idea, we have to define what business actually is. Business. Well, it started with an origin, and that origin is an individual, the founder, or founders, right? The founding fathers had an origin, and that was the first person to open their mouth and share their thought, their ideation, their word, and other people agreed with it or they didn't agree with it. So if we go back to what business is in definition, a vision to a solution of a problem. First, the profit is the margin in between what it costs to solve the problem and what comes in. So a business's vision, or the definition of a business, is the vision of a solution of a problem from the origin. Now that's either the founder or the founders. That beginning influence of this idea, solving the problem of another, esoterically, right, from a thought conceptualization, emotionally, the feelings of not having that something, and then the physical, all right, this is the product, this is the tangible material solution to that problem. Well, it all starts with the vision of a solution of a problem from the person that comes up with the great idea. So the example would be, before there were cars, from point A to point B, the horse was the fastest way to get there. And then an individual had an idea of a vision to a solution of a problem, which is a faster way to get from point A to point C, which is a new technology. And the profit came from the cost in creating that new technology, maybe the car, the overhead in creating it, and then what came in. That margin in between is the profit. See, the reason this is so important is because when we define business, we lose our soul in the process of doing business if we don't take a step back and understand the definition of it. That is a vision to a solution of a problem first. Not, I'm going to profit first. I'm going to selfishly go out and I'm going to take for this short time win for that long time loss, because it's all about me, 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 me. And when you're building an ideal, an ideology, a country, a company, it has to have purpose in it. It has to have energy in it. So a business definition that we have to own in this new world of transparency and innovation and altruistic success to create win-wins is that a business is a vision to a solution of a problem. Now, if we look at this, vision equals imagination. So the founder had an idea of how something could be done better to then solve problems of others. The imagination is the solution. It's in their head first. The solution equals a mutual benefit. For long-term success, when the couple gets married, they both had a problem. Physically, they unconsciously needed children. Emotionally, they unconsciously and consciously needed love and also are maybe lonely. And now spiritually, they align. So the vision to a solution of a problem makes the business. Now, depending how much that relationship costs and the profit of what comes in, right? Well, what does that mean? Well, what is going into it has to come back at a bigger return on investment for all parties to win. Now, if the emotional, spiritual, and logical needs, meaning like material results of that relationship are there, they're forthright, they're coming in abundance, and they feel great about it. Now they have a family, and the children win. The child wins. So long-term success is when both parties win. This is the law of abundance, and it's proven. It's just physics. At the end of the day, we could break everything down to that things are energy, and they are matter, and they are the same thing in different forms. And then at the beginning of the business, first, it is an idea of something better than the way it was, and everybody wins in that idea. And that's why we hire, even if we made all our money in business over here, and we're going to sell our house, we don't necessarily do it on our own. We hire a real estate agent to sell our house. And we're all just trading our energy. We're all just trading our visions of solutions of problems. And the profit is the margin between what comes in and what it takes to solve it. And it's so important to stay true to that because, well, the mission is what must be done. And things that are physical, things that are about like matter that we can touch are selfish. But things that are non-physical are things that no matter what, we all can align and share to. That is why it is so important to start with the culture, because that's what brings people together. So understanding that business is a solution of a problem first, and the profit is the margin between what it costs to solve the problem, what comes in, is our way of not losing ourselves in the development of the business. So mission equals what must be done. What must be done equals matter. Matter is void of thought. It doesn't have any soul to it, as you could say. That's why money is just a symbolic representation of past thoughts that were enacted to solve a problem for something, someone, or something else. And it was accumulated. But the money has no power without the observer giving it power. Like our society gives money to power, and we trade and barter with it. So the actions aren't enough. It must be the ideals that drive the behavior. When there's no thought in the conversation, there's no moral compass. And without a moral compass, things start in truth and end in falsehood. So we can look at it like this. When the vision is not clear, short-term material thinking is prevalent, and a one-sided relationship will inevitably form. So if we aren't clear on what a business is from day one, it was the first person to have that vision to solution of a problem, then by the time we have 100 employees, or 10, or 10,000, no matter what, the business was started in truth. It was started in, I'm going to solve a problem for someone else. Yes, I'll benefit financially, but I'm solving a problem for someone else, and that will solve my problem. By the time we grow, people that are coming into the business cannot read our minds as founders or as leaders. Or maybe we're the leaders that can't read the minds of the founders. So the why of the company gets lost in translation, and the literal soul of the organization is lost, and people don't have any reason to do the right thing. And people need to be led into doing the right thing. It's part of education. It's part of our development. It's part of what keeps together a democracy, which is founded on virtue, which are founded on values. So when the vision is not clear because the business hasn't been defined, it gets diluted, and you'll see more and more greed, more and more short-term thinking, more and more selfishness. This is where chaos or disorder is birthed. Without vision, we are operating on a lower plane of existence, and it's a one-party solution. So if I sell something in the short term, it may or may not have financially benefited or emotionally benefited or spiritually benefited my customer in the long term. But in the short term, they won't notice, and I'm going to get my commission. I'm going to get my sale. That belief system over time will negatively affect the business. And it all comes back to understanding, well, what the heck is a business in the first place? It's a vision to a solution of a problem first. And the profit is the margin in between what it costs to solve the problem and what comes in. We get clear on that. Now we can start driving to create cultural alignment and have a company that where culture really matters. So the word thought matrix, when we define business as a vision to a solution of a problem, that starts with the inception of the company, which is the founder's idea of solving a problem. It brings us to that founder, to that individual, to their internal culture, which would be their character. The word thought matrix understanding is a pivotal part of understanding the overall picture of creating cultural alignment and how to drive belief systems in any organization, company, group, nation, what have you. So coming to the individual, it all starts with that first influencer that's opening their mouth or doing that video or writing that piece of literature that other people are going to read or watch or listen to through their five senses to create that sixth sense, culture. So the word thought matrix is simple as this. Your words, your thoughts, your ideas, the beliefs that you form based on the things that occur in your environment, through your genes, through your mind, propel your action, and those actions result in results that are now observed through that same belief system that you already had. Your words, your thoughts, your ideas, your beliefs, your actions, you get outcomes. Now, based on a positive or negative predisposed reality, you're either going to reaffirm or let go of that previous belief system based on what occurred. So example, someone has a negative word thought, they talk and think negatively about making phone calls to prospective clients, cold calls. They have a negative word thought matrix, idea, belief system towards that activity. So when they get those outcomes of negative, that's going to reaffirm their negative belief system of said activity. And this goes for anything. What's so important to understand is the influencer of the organization, the initial influencer, the owner of the company, the founder of the company, their initial word thought matrix is what drives or propels the organization. It's what ignites or blows out all the candles in the organization. It's understanding how important every human's word thought matrix is, because the words are the soothsayer of one's virtue. Your words express the thoughts that are in your head that show the world what your value system is, what your character is. And through those words and thoughts, there's ideas, and they form belief systems going into battle with the environment. Based on what occurs, the individual's either going to keep going or stop. This is what occurs in business. The ones that are successful, you've made it so far to the point where you've got enough customers where, well, people want to do business with you. But we need more people to service the new customers that you can't do business with. That has to do with how you, the influencer or the influencers, influence their people's word thought matrices. Because everyone's view of reality is based on the words, the ideas, the beliefs that they already have. And now the leadership conversation is when someone's word thought matrix is weak in respect to what they need to learn through you, their leader, you have to be able to let them borrow your energy to lift them up so that they're inspired, they're open, they're curious, and then they can fail through your experience so they don't give up and they become better. Because based on those outcomes, that positive or negative word thought matrix is going to be reaffirmed or it's going to be let go and broken. For example, the person that's afraid of making the phone calls, that's able to overcome that fear through a mentor, through a leader, and through the knowledge they learn for them, with them, and through them to overcome their fears. Because based on those outcomes and that pre-existing matrix of reality, how they see the world, they're going to stop or keep going. And through that, it will become habit. And through that habit will become their conviction. The person that argues for what hurts them, because that's coming from a place that they don't quite fully understand. So it was Carl Jung that said, people don't have ideas, ideas have people. And for that very reason, it takes The leader's understanding of their words, thoughts, ideas, beliefs, and how they handle outcomes to help drive their followers' word thought matrices to handle these negative stimuluses in accordance with how they view the world so that they can keep going and build that proper habits to be successful. So then their convictions change. And when their convictions change, the words that they say change. And that shifts the culture of the organization. Words are the soothsayer virtue. Words are the buckets of energy, of thought that leaders influence everyone around them to speak and think and believe and be and become whatever it is that they are. So understanding the word thought matrix is the end all be all and beginning of the origin of alignment is pivotal in leading your people. So if we look at it, over time, action will lead to a higher word thought matrix of unconscious habituation and conscious willpower and elevate the preconceived notion of reality or prerequisite word thought matrix. Meaning, leader is leading their employee on a specific task that that employee has never grappled with, been a part of. They don't know what they don't know, and they will always have pre-existing views of that behavior. It's the leader's job to raise their personal power through belief, to inspire them to pick up the phone or call a customer back or have a conversation that would be difficult to them. Through that leader having a very powerful word thought matrix in respect to that activity. That is why it's so important for the leaders of organizations to continue to be open and curious and observant and reflective and let go to tell the truth, to keep developing their education so they can give the utility necessary for their people to develop meaning. So, therefore, one must detach from the outcome, positive or negative, and just persist to habituate, leading to results worth sharing that in turn evoke conscious conviction that leads to aligned internal culture or character of the individuals they lead that shifts their ecosystem of self-belief and influence those around them to create that alignment. It is up to the influencer to watch their words, watch their thoughts, lead from the front, do what other people need to see them doing so they can be open and curious to then learn exactly how they did it so that their beliefs, their predisposed beliefs in accordance to that new activity, they rise up and they are hopeful and courageous and not fear-based and shame-based and guilt-based, because that's when procrastination sets in and things don't occur. So as we go through creating cultural alignment, we're going to be talking a lot about the word thought matrix. So it makes sense to study this, to look back on this, and to go through this multiple times to make sure you understand exactly our words show our thoughts, and they're cyclical. They go back and forth with one another, and they influence our ideas. They influence the beliefs that we have. That influences how we react to all situations that become our habits, whether positive or negative. That influence our convictions is what we share with other people, especially the people that follow us and need to be led by us. That creates the culture of our organization by influencing the internal culture or the character of the people that associate themselves with us. Because everyone in the company or group or country, whatever it is, has their own individual word thought matrix. But it's the leader's word thought matrix is where everything starts. So understanding that a business is the vision to a solution of a problem of the influencer that started the business's word thought matrix, and that understanding and the word thought matrix's understanding brings us to what cultural actually is in the next slide that we're going to go into. So understanding that a business definition is a vision to a solution of a problem first, before the profit, which is what costs to solve the problem and what comes in, right? That margin, and understanding that the influencers that found this idea, that build this culture, this cultural alignment, their word thought matrix is the crux that everything relies upon. Now we have to understand the definition of culture. Now, there's a lot of definitions of culture, but let's look at it like this. An invisible ecosystem, a metaphorical ecosystem of shared belief created by an influencer and maintained by the alignment of the influenced. You have the sun. The sun doesn't turn off. The sun is always in chaos. It is always in purpose. The sun's purpose is to burn bright. That is this idea that we're building. This idea that we're building, you can't touch it. However, it started in the head of the founder, and it must be transmuted in the heads of all of the leadership and then all of the people. So they want to be at work and they want to solve problems of the customer. They are micro reflections of this macro conversation. They are modeling the behavior of the founder. So culture is this metaphorical ecosystem of shared belief created by the influencer and maintained by the alignment of the influenced. The influencer is the sun. The influenced is all the matter in the solar system. But you don't want to be Pluto and you don't want to be Mercury, meaning you don't want to be too far where there's no life because it's too cold. And you don't want to be too close where it burns up and there's no life because it's too hot. We want Earth. Earth is where life is born. It's not too far away. It's not too close. And what's even more powerful than that is when more suns can be built, meaning more influential people that are gravitating towards this idea that we're building, that don't mind just being influencers within the confines that they can't touch or see of this big idea that we're building. See, the most important two words in culture isn't culture, it's cultural alignment. It's the influencers started this idea. They've built it out so big that it's bigger than them and it's bigger than anyone else, so no one can make it about them. So it doesn't just start in truth and end in falsehood. Understanding that the oratory or the word of that influencer initially is what sparks that idea in their head to align with other people. So for example, the founder opens their mouth in a one-on-one conversation with a prospective client. And that client now aligns or believes what they believe. They believe in their story. They believe in their answers. And they have been asked the questions necessary to want to do something today. They have been, quote unquote, sold. They made a decision to buy. That happens between the customer and the founder. It has to happen between the employee and the founder. That's cultural alignment. It's the internal brand or belief the employees have of why they're actually doing what they're doing. What do they believe in? It's like before we can get into the invisible architecture, we have to understand the definitions. Is that it's this metaphorical ecosystem of shared belief created by an influencer but maintained by the alignment of the influenced. So think of like a dictatorship. You have the influencer and you have the 99% of people that are influenced, but they are forced to be influenced out of fear. You have a monarchy that has the influencers operating out of honor. And out of the other 99 people, some people can rise up and become someone within that organization, but it's still based not necessarily on individuality, which would be what democracy stands for. The individuality of each planet being able to be close enough to not be Pluto and be Earth in respect to the sun, the influencer. See, creating cultural alignment is about first understanding the power of the influencer and how much their word thought matrix and their understanding of the world has to do with their business's success, but then building up the invisible influencer, which is the culture puzzle, which we're going to get to in the future. Because that influencer doesn't necessarily have to be a person once we execute on creating cultural alignment properly. But it starts with the person. It's that invisible ecosystem of shared belief created by that individual and maintained by the alignment of those that are following them. Those that have gained utility and confidence through them. Those that respect them and want to be Earth, not Mercury, not Pluto. So if we look at this, it starts with the individual culture or character of the influencer. Then culture is the organism of the many. It's other people's belief in that organism, that influencer, and their belief in something greater than them. Alignment is the trust. It's that invisible bridge or invisible belief of they believe what I believe and we're on the right track. Someday they'll model my behavior as a leader and they'll step in line and now we have scale. Belief is the internal story. The story is a subjective reality. The subjective reality is the word thought matrix. That's why people believe certain things that get them certain results. And someday they can change and get different results, or they can stay the same and get the same results. That's a subjective reality. Two people could look at the same thing and see something differently because it's based on their internal word thought matrix. The word thought matrix equals behavior. Behavior equals cultural alignment, whether positive or negative. Cultural alignment is culture, and culture equals creation, or creation is subjective and objective realm. Now, the subjective is what we think. The objective is what we see. What we think influences how we act, which can get us different results of what we see. Just remember that the leader is the leader because believing is seeing for them. The follower is the follower because seeing is believing for them. The influencer has to see it in their head first and then enact it with their physical form. And they get the result. They started it. They're the entrepreneur. They're the leader in respect to those that have not done that. And those that have not done that yet are capable of it because we all are. They just have yet to do it. So they must see to believe. They must see the son be the son. They must see the leader be the leader to then believe that they could do it, to then learn how to do it, to then do it. And once that light bulb goes off, now you've just scaled yourself. You've modeled yourself for another that they could teach another, and then it's exponential growth. All of this is an individual to another individual, a mentor to a mentee, a micro reflection of a macro conversation, which is the sun and the planets that operate around it. They're either too close or too far. We all know the people that we've attempted to coach in the past, the employees we've attempted to help, that we delegated too much, they didn't have the guidance, and they became Pluto. Or the ones where we were overbearing and a helicopter parent and didn't let their wings get unclipped. It comes down to what we're going to get into next, which is believe, understand, and do, to actually help develop people through this ideal so that they can develop the competencies and the confidence to believe before they see it, and others that can then see it to believe it, and that's leadership. So understanding culture as defined as a metaphorical ecosystem of shared belief created by an influencer and maintained by the alignment of that influencer and the influenced relationship to them is the bedrock of creating the culture puzzle or cultural alignment, which is the invisible influencer, which is not just the influencer or the leader of the organization, but the idea that they're building. And on the next slide, we're going to get into believing, understanding, and doing to actually make this pragmatic and tactful and get results in the business. So understanding business defined, understanding the word thought matrix, and defining culture brings us to actionably creating cultural alignment. Now think of BUD. Believe, understand, and do. For our people to believe what we believe and to understand the competencies necessary to be useful in solving the customer's problem, as we have been useful in the past of solving the customer's problem, through what we believe, through what we understand, through what we do, our people have to learn what we know, that they don't know, that they don't know. If they are not open to that guidance and they are closed, they cannot understand. If they are open, but there isn't an opportunity to understand or be taught, they cannot learn. And if they are not both believing and understanding, they cannot do. And if they do without believing, their negative matrix of the world will convince them that it will never work because they will fail so badly with not the right resources of belief that they will continue making the same mistakes. So inspiring your people to believe, teaching them how through understanding so that they do more and get better as they get better before they do more to get better is the secret sauce to creating cultural alignment. Meaning every single employee in an organization always has to be believing in more, always has to be learning in more, and always has to be doing more to keep developing, or they will not create intrapersonal development. internal confidence, internal competence to then have better interpersonal relationships with their other employees and their clients, to become the leaders necessary to take on the mentees necessary for them to be mentors to develop a proper cycle of life. So it comes down to 3 steps. You need a buddy. Every mentor needs a mentee, and every mentee needs a mentor. And the mentee ends up becoming the mentor to the mentor in different regards when everyone is growing and learning. But it starts first with the story. So storytelling and understanding the business is a vision to a solution of a problem first, taking that and actually using story to drive the company's purpose, the company's history, the company's language, opens up the interest of the employees to actually care to learn new things. Think of it like a movie. The worst movie that you've ever seen, was the storyline great or was it terrible? If it was terrible, then we're on the same page. The best movie ever seen, was it a terrible storyline or a great storyline? A great storyline. Movies that have storylines that impact us, that touch us, open us up to be curious and observant and reflective and feel like we're inside of the movie. It's a real thing. We cry, but it didn't really happen. That's our word thought matrix becoming culturally aligned with the movie. So to get our people to believe, we have to understand how to tell stories and develop the language of our organization, which we're going to get into in the next slides coming up, like the vision, the mission, the values, the purpose, the belief, the goal. This lays the foundation for the language of the organization so that every day you can use it to help people understand how to act, change their beliefs, change their actions, get new results. They become the mentors to other mentees. They become sons of light in purpose, more productive, and the company is more profitable. So if we look through this, believing is developing intrapersonal development that leads to interpersonal relationships. Stories create a visualization and make things real and interesting to people so they're open. And seeing is believing for followers in regard to influencers. So a key denominator of an influencer's ability to inspire people to believe in something that they cannot see physically is to tell stories, because half of our brain is actually a metaphorical storyboard. Our limbic system thinks in stories. It's the reason why we watch movies and we cry and why we get scared or why we walk out because it's boring. So when we know how to tell stories, when we believe in stories, when we understand how to tell stories, and we actually do tell stories to inspire our people to believe, then they're interested in understanding. So through storytelling, you can actually help someone that cannot see it in their mind, see it in their mind, to then do it. And as an influencer, you see things other people can't see. As an owner of an organization, as a leader of an organization on this level, you see things other people can't see, and you're not quite sure how to get them to see it without them physically seeing it. And they can't actually physically see it because it's only in your head. The way you get it across is telling stories. Deconstructing and reconstructing the actual how to develop the utility or competence for your people is taking the endpoint of the conversation, like what you want them to learn, and reverse engineering it into steps of things that they have to learn, so that through storytelling and through training them on this tacit knowledge, these competencies that they need to learn consistently, they become more competent as people in the organization, and they'll be more competent with the customers and competent with their other employees or coworkers, and build a sense of love and belonging in the organization. So understanding can be broken into a pedagogical syntax. Is what is the order that an individual needs to see something in order for them to understand? So what examples, analogies, stories, and metaphors are you as an influencer using to create understanding for your people? Are you breaking these big concepts into small steps so that they can understand them and actually become better at them? Doing. When the leader that believes and understands something inspires other people to believe it and understand it, and those people now do it, your people actually take action on what they didn't really believe in before, but now they do, and they kind of understand it. If you're not there to be their mentor in those times and to pick them up or to show them physically how to do it and vice versa, unclip their wings at the same time, help them grow, it will be hard for them to borrow your matrix. That is why you've invested in Culture Matters virtual training, to be able to go through with the repetition and role play and have the accountability necessary through this good content to create real learning, not just exposure to the content, but real consistent learning to change the way you view the world, what you believe, what you understand, so you can take action and empower other people to do it. So Bud, develop a buddy system where there's mentor to mentee, mentee to mentor, because those mentees will become mentors to other mentees, and that cycle of development will continue. Because at the end of the day, the business is just a vision to a solution of a problem from that first founder or founders. And now you scaled that vision through the word thought matrices of your people. But if they don't have the right words, thoughts, ideas, belief systems, and can overcome the outcomes to build good habits, great habits, convictions to believe in it, it's going to be difficult for that cultural alignment or trust to be created, because they won't be able to teach other people how to believe and then understand and do. So understanding the buddy system is a foundation to getting into what we're about to get into, with this, the vision and the mission and the values and the beginning of the language to build that culture puzzle. So understanding the founder lemma is, if we look at culture defined as a metaphorical ecosystem of shared belief created by an influencer, which is the founder originally, and maintained by the alignment of the influenced. So that alignment in the beginning is just the founder. They get their first customer. There was alignment. The customer believed in that vision to a solution of a problem, enough to then give money, enough for there to then be a reward to the individual that solved their problem, the founder. So they had this internal word thought matrix of belief that's all in their head, this vision to a solution of a problem. The dilemma is it's all in their head. The solution to that dilemma is to communicate that. Now, the way we communicate that, we will use different mediums. There will be different forms, which we'll get into in the culture puzzle, like language and symbolism and story and the actual mediums that the message is translated through. But the founder dilemma is, before we can transcribe anything, before anything can be done daily, before buddies can be built, we have to find it. We have to get clear on the vision, transcribed, the mission, the purpose, the belief, the goal, the history, the story, the language, the ranks, all the pieces of that culture puzzle. But if we go all the way back, we have to get clear on what makes up the invisible architecture of the mind of the owner, of the founder. Alexander the Great was 19 years old when he had a vision of conquering the entire world. In his head, some words and thoughts and ideas and beliefs circled and circled and circled to create his character of the guy that fought every day, that trained harder than everyone, that read tons of books, that spoke in front of his men, that led from the front of battle, that never lost a battle and never stopped fighting or wanting to fight or speaking in front of his men, leading from the front, being the sun, being in his purpose. There's something in his head that kept him going. And there's something in who he was and how he operated and how he was all in, and everyone could see, right? Seeing is believing, and so believing is seeing. Everyone could see who he was, and they were just all about it. They followed him to the ends of days. The issue is, when he died, his empire died with him. Everything that was in his head that motivated him and then drew other people to follow him and fight with him was in his head. So when he died, the entire empire was split up. How many businesses have we seen that were so massively successful, and then the founder died or left or sold it, and then all of a sudden it's nothing? It was never the product. The product was a manifestation of whatever vision to a solution of a problem the founder had. You see the companies that are innovative, that always change and evolve with the world, that have a very clear purpose, a clear vision, clear literature, that continue going after the founder's death or after the leader's exit. See, my argument would be, for you, we have to look at Alexander the Great's buddy, his friend, Ptolemy I, who, after Alexander the Great's empire fell, and his children were killed and his wife was killed and it split up. His best friend, who was also pretty sharp, went to Egypt and started writing books and creating the culture puzzle, and his name was Ptolemy the First. He created what we're about to talk about. He got clear on his values, his purpose, his vision. He created the literature. He created the ideology necessary for no matter when he died, he'd still have an empire for time, long time. And his great granddaughter was Cleopatra. His company didn't die with him. He created the Alexandrian libraries. There is a difference. Now, if you read the history of it, his company or nation died when the people that were products of it stopped reading his literature, stopped saluting his flag, stopped culturally aligning with the belief systems that he laid out. But he sure as heck, Ptolemy the First, lasted way longer than Alexander the Great. So the founder dilemma is this. For the same reasons that the founders, the leadership, the owners of organizations want to be great is why they're not. Alan Watts. The same reason you want to be great is why you are not. The same reason. That drive through conflict to endeavor and overcome all others through your selfishness is why you're not great. That needs to be transcribed. We have to find who you really are. We have to get clear on your values. We have to get clear on your vision. We have to get clear on your mission, your purpose, so you can develop through them and so people can aspire to them, because everyone is just as lost as you. That's the point. Period. So the founder dilemma is, if we don't get clear on who you are, you as in the founder, you as in the owner, you as in the highest leadership of this company, well, then there's no constitution. There is no Alexandrian libraries. There is no Bible. There is no foundation for your company. And there must be a foundation for your company that other people can get in and read and understand and develop through and idolize, so that they can have a reason to get up and do things. They have to believe in something. So the founder dilemma is getting out of the picture and saying, wow, who am I? We got to transcribe this out. We got to write this out and figure this out. And we have to develop. And we have to inspire other people to develop. So the character of the founder must be found. It must be transcribed and perpetuated daily, as well as continually developed through Bud, believing, understanding, and doing. Or the idea will die in its infancy. And the most interesting part is, no matter what, as we grow these ecosystems of shared belief, more and more people get involved. And it's harder and harder and harder to create the alignment of beliefs, because more and more people have to be involved for it to continually grow. So if the idea is not so much bigger than everyone will split up and become what Alexander the Great's empire did, which was it broke back down to northern Africa, northern India, Persia. They broke out this way. Greece went this way. Macedonia went this way. It just all split up. If we want alignment, we have to get out of the way of that founder dilemma and transcribe it so we can do it daily. And that's what we're going to get into next. So the culture puzzle. Think of this as the invisible architecture of the influenced not being a person, but being an idea. We define culture as a metaphorical ecosystem of shared belief created by an influencer and maintained by the alignment of the influenced. It starts with the founder, who has an idea to solve a problem and then solves it for clients. So many problems now arise because their brand or belief consumers have in this individual is so strong, they're getting tons and tons of business to where they need to hire other people. In the throes of hiring other people, they realize they can't find the right people. What's not true about that is you can't find your children. You have children, and they model you. Employees cannot see in their mind what you, the owner, the founder, the leader, sees in your mind. That's why they need to see it physically from you. They need to believe to understand to do, but they need to see it from you. So how do you teach your children how to believe, understand, and do? It comes from the idea and understanding that The influencer has to operate at a certain level of existence, of courage, of purpose, of selflessness to others, service to others. So other people that want to be in their position want to, for the wrong reasons, but become better through the right reasons and reasoning of the influencer. Now, that's a heavy burden to anyone running a company. Right? To be that service-based, to live that selflessly is a difficult thing, because it means saying no to a lot of things that are desiring and prideful and easy to say yes to. It's a very slippery slope. And what's difficult is, for the same reason that results are gotten, the self-infatuated ideology of the individual that's the influencer, that they know something that no one else knows, and they're that confident in what they do that they convince enough customers to work with them that they get so much results. What drives them to do that is the same thing that drives all their employees away from them. And that's pride as the shield of insecurity. That's desire as selfishness. So the key to creating cultural alignment and things that last long periods of time, where people can develop through them and actualize through them, is the influencer, in relation to the influenced, will be a person but shouldn't be. It needs to be an idea. It's the Messiah that drives the ideology, not just drives himself. The dictatorship always fails because it's about the dictator, and it's led with fear. But the cult leader gets people to show up on time and do more than most companies, because the idea that's bigger than them is what drives that activity. So all I'm arguing is, if they can do it, why aren't you? If organizations in the world that are doing evil things can get less turnover and more productivity out of their people, why not you? The argument is, they have belief systems that drive the leaders and drive the people to become leaders, that build the brands, that then come back and build more employees, that then become more leaders, and they grow and they grow and they grow and they grow because of the belief system. Most companies that are successful have the archetype of the leader who is extremely competent, extremely thought-provoking, extremely aggressive, works way more hours, and is completely driven out of conflict, which is what we talked about in cultivating your culture. That does extremely well and then attracts other people who want to be who they are, and other people that want to know what they know, that have the same internal conflict as them. They attract them to work with them. And if those leaders that are under them or subservient to them believe what they believe, they'll work through them, and they'll have these mentors, and they'll build this megalith company. And it's all founded on, inevitably, falsehood, which is selfishness and greed and things that are not true. Because it was all about the person that started it from beginning and never had anything that was greater than them. Now, this is the thing. Understanding the culture puzzle is what could actually enable someone to do not good things, things that are very poor, evil things. Because morality aside, people do not have ideas, ideas have them. If an individual is not self-aware, if an individual has no meaning that they've created in their life through utility, through being good at something, through the confidence of being good for another, they are lost. And it is the job of the leader to help them not be lost, to help them find themselves through the culture puzzle. So we break it down into a couple main categories: your story, your language, the symbols you use, the mediums, and the who. The who is the center. The who is finding it and transcribing it. It starts with the owner of the organization. They have to get clear on their vision, their mission, their values, their belief, their purpose, their goals, and the language that makes up the organization. They have to get clear on the history, the stories they want to use to drive the meaning of this idea that's bigger than them. They have to use symbols to create physical ideals to operate through for their people, like the uniforms that are worn by people in the military. That is a physical symbol that reflects meaning, which was developed by the individual wearing the uniform based on what they accomplished. So there's ranking systems that are reflected in the value of the rank through the uniforms. When you take language and you take symbols and use them to show the story and the history and the why of the organization, you can create a belief system that people will work through, that people will die through. It's the reason there's 192 countries, there's thousands and thousands of different cultures in the world, and there's one that we can all agree on is the same, which is a human, and yet we still kill each other every single day all over the world. Because human culture mattering is not necessarily as important as this country versus this country. So at that level, there's a misalignment, and then there's a war. And why do people that are in armies get together to then kill other people for no reason other than cultural reason? Well, because of the culture puzzle. Because of the language, symbols, mediums, stories, and the who that they were developed through that have been delineated into these invisible pieces of architecture that we don't understand. So if we look at his story, what is the history and the founding of the organization? In 1776, America had an idea that through the individuality of everyone in the organization, in the company, in this soon-to-be country, they didn't need to pay debts to the managers that were absentee managers, meaning the owners of each colony were, in a sense, managers of the company that owned our soon-to-be company, which was the British Empire. And so the founding fathers got together with a vision to a solution of a problem of kicking out the British Empire so that they could build their own company or country, America. And they got together and they rallied behind what? A constitution where they developed a language, they got a flag, they got uniforms, they got the color and the ranking system, and developed the goals and the purpose and the belief and the vision, the mission, and the values, and they put it all together into these pieces of literature, and the medium was the message. How they trained their army, how they built their forms of government, and the speeches that were made to rally their people, which is their employees, were the common folk of the colonies that got together. So founding fathers just moved into the position of the managers who were managing the colonies before there was an America. All of this occurs without our attention. All of this is an effect of our physiological meanderings around the world as humans. We create little cultures. We create little companies everywhere we go. We create little countries everywhere we go. We create little families everywhere we go. As a metaphorical ecosystem of shared belief created by an influencer and maintained by the alignment of the influenced, culture is the end-all be-all of understanding of the world. And as soon as your company has an idea, which is represented by song, literature, rankings, uniform that symbolically represents those rankings, a transcribed language within the rankings, a transcribed vision, mission, values, belief, goals, purpose, and the mediums to push that out, like Facebook, like Instagram, like video propaganda was in World War II. There will be alignment between the employees and the organization, right? Or the country, people, populace, and the leaders of the army, so that people will enroll for the draft on their own. There will be less turnover and more productivity and more profitability because people are working towards this higher purpose. But we have to lay out all of the language. We have to lay out all of the symbolism. We have to start with the story of why the company was founded and the history of the company and use that as the bedrock. We have to start with the who, which is where it all comes together. Right now, who's running your organization? Who is the individual that their character needs to be transcribed into the values, the vision, the mission, the purpose, the belief, the goal? And we take all that language and we represent it with the symbolism and drive it through the story, through the medians, and consistently develop our people to learn new competencies so they can create meaning solving customers' problems and their employees, their mentees' problems. They will continually develop, and utility plus meaning equals truth. An organization will operate at a higher frequency. There will be less turnover. There will be more productivity. People will do the right thing because it's in our nature to do the right thing. It is not in our nature to do the wrong thing, but we will do the wrong thing without the culture puzzle laid out, because no one will know why they are there. No one will know who they should be. Everyone needs development, and it is up to the company to develop the culture puzzle to make that happen.